Some of you might be wondering, has Trixie come back yet? And the answer to the question is, yes, she did come back. But before she had a chance to see the video, I told her that the Moonstone Cup was going on right now, and that Sunset and Twilight were both there, and Trixie, she just couldn't resist the challenge. So that should keep her quiet until I get this Vic done. Duetto. Chapter 21. What are you looking at? Twilight shook herself out of her daydream and pretended to have just noticed Trixie, who was glaring at her from beside a bookshelf across the room. Rain was pattering down against the windows of a Ponyville library, so naturally Twilight had retreated to a magical studies book to pass the time, as he had really been reading it. Well, said Trixie impatiently. Oh, it's nothing. The showman rolls her eyes. Trixie refused. Why are you staring at Trixie? Is there something on her face? Trixie knew that Dragonling was up to something when he used that marker. No, there's nothing on your face, Trixie, Twilight assured her. I was just lost in thought. You were thinking, Trixie repeated, about the what? I don't know, nothing, said Twilight for the third time. Trixie raised an eyebrow. You were thinking about nothing. Twilight felt her face grow red as she dropped to her gaze to the middle of the table. Well, yes. Have you ever just stared at some pony and thought about nothing? It wasn't really a question, more of a defensive gesture. Trixie regarded her with a full look all the same. No, Trixie can't say she has, the showman said bluntly. Twilight let out a hopeless sigh. No, me neither. Twilight? The sound of Trixie's voice dragged Twilight back to the present, where she found herself bombarded by the sights and sounds of the crowded stadium around her. Rain sputtered down upon the roof of the comparative box in which she sat, onto the canopies erected over the stands to protect the crowd, and down to the uncovered arena itself. Beside her sat the other 8 competitors, along with Trixie. She was giving Twilight a concerned and impatient look. What's wrong with you? The showman asked. Twilight shook her head to refocus. Nothing. You don't have to say it like that, she added in an undertone. Trixie had let out an apologetic huff. Sorry, but this event is really important. It could mean the difference between winning the display and being beaten by Flare. We can't afford to let ourselves get distracted. I know, you're right, said Twilight, nodding to herself more than to her partner. All their work this far would be for nothing if they didn't win this last event. Twilight was determined to make sure they didn't fail, for Trixie's sake. The Lavender Unicorn flashed her partner a reassuring smile. I won't let you down. There was a long moment in which the showmare just stared at Twilight in consideration. Then she blinked and smiled too. I know, she muttered. Fillies and Gentlecolts, your attention please! Came the announcer's echoing voice at last. Here we go, Twilight thought to herself. Everyone is present and accounted for, so I say it's about time for us to get this event underway. What do you say, folks? His answer was a roar of approval from the gathered crowd. Apparently, the Manhattan Knights weren't going to let the rain dampen their spirits today. I'm glad we're in agreement, the announcer chuckled. Then, without further ado, I give you the third and final event of this year's Manhattan display. The ground shook slightly, and a muffled rumbling sound met Twilight's ears. Peeking out, she saw the long stone slabs setting out for the arena wall, forming a staircase all the way down to the box of the floor of the ring, just as they'd done after the first event. Our first performance will be graciously given by our pair of powerful stallions themselves, Earth Twister and Sandstorm! All right, cried Twister from beside Twilight, thrusting a hoof into the air as the audience let out another cheer. Let's do this! The performance that the brothers gave was splendid, as they were those of Bay Dasher, Cherry Blossom, Nightshade, and Violet. But Twilight found herself focusing too much on what they were doing, besides clapping along with the rest of the clouds and the more impressive feats. What was important right then was their own performance, as well could have been coming up next each time. It didn't, though. Once Nightshade and Violet, the third act, had taken their bows and started to return to the box, the announcer called out the next pair. Flare and Rose, please make your way down to the arena! Trixie let out an obnoxious, weary groan. Twilight knew that her partner was eager to show off the genius performance they spent all night planning. so it was understandable that she put it on going last night. Wish us luck, Flair muttered as he brushed past Twilight, heading for the staircase. Twilight opened her mouth to do so by reflex, but she hesitated. She managed to stop the words that started her mouth, mastering Trixie's silence and trying not to feel too bad about it. Probably didn't expect a replay anyway, she reasoned. Mrs. Rhodes stepped elegantly after him, wearing a sparkling teal dress that would have made Rarity proud. A shortest tail trailed just behind her host, and Twilight was hard-pressed not to stare. None of the other competitors, say Cherry Blossom and her flower garland, had dressed for the event, but Twilight began to question whether she should have done so herself. When Flair and Rose stepped out into the rain and started making their way down to the arena, Twilight turned to Trixie. Despite her earlier words, the showmare showed nothing, looked nothing short of utterly distracted, glaring at Flair's smiling image on the wire screen across the way. I'm sure his performance won't be all that amazing, Twilight lied, trying to cheer her partner up. Not compared to ours, at least. Of course it won't, Trixie laughed haughtily. The two of them are no match for us. You know, guys, I kind of wish Rarity and the others were here. That way she could have given Twilight an awesome dress. And maybe Trixie a sparkling hat. How wrong they were! A gentle but quickly paced music began to sound throughout the stadium as soon as Flair and Rose had taken their positions. At first, they just stood there, either waiting for and mentally preparing their spells, but as soon as the music picked up, they closed in on one another, and in perfect time with the opponent, they literally began to dance across the arena floor. Magical spotlights followed their movements from an impossible source within the clouds, changing color along with the tempo and mood of the music. And each and every one of their twirls or flourishes was emphasized by unique, eye-catching spell casts. They were small at first, like a wave of colorful sparks or a flash of light. For long, they began combining their magic to affect even the rain, leaving the droplets around themselves such that they looked as thousands of tiny, sparkling fireflies. For her part, Twilight couldn't take her eyes off of them the entire time. She was just as silent as the rest of the audience as she watched the fantastic routine play out flawlessly, as it had been rehearsed 1,000 times before. But it wasn't until after the music came to a steady end, and the two finished with a flowing bow, that the dance of silence finally broke. The applause was like anything that Twilight had ever heard, so you had to fight to keep yourself to a polite clap, as everybody else in the stands rose to their hooves and stomped to the ground or yelled, cheering their approval for what felt like minutes as the pair remained where they were, soaking it all up with proud smiles. While the screen across the way showed that even Princess Leslie herself was clapping her hooves and smiling. It was obvious that it wasn't out of politeness. Twilight felt a certain lurch in her stomach as he realized how much pressure was on her now. Flair and Rose had impressed not only the entire crowd, but the princess as well. She wished that she and Trixie had gone first and gotten it over with. Trixie abruptly got to her hooves, though clearly not to applaud, and Twilight gave her a start. The showmare glowered simply a frown at Flair, determination set on her face. For one very frightening moment, Twilight Sparkle worried her partner meant to jump down to the arena and tackle him in front of the 1,000-pony audience. But mercifully she didn't. She just stood there in silence, waiting for the applause to die down, and for Flair and Rose to start making their way up back the stairs. "Are you okay?" said Twilight, trying to focus on Trixie, not on the funny look the other competitors were giving her. "Just fine," Trixie muttered darkly, so she didn't sit down. "And now it's time for our final pair to take the stage and grace us with their performance!" Already on their hooves, Trixie turned to stride along the road towards the stairs, not even waiting her name to be called. Twilight almost tripped over herself to catch up with her. "I know you're all as excited as I am, folks, so I'll waste no more time in giving you the two lovely, title-worthy mares, the educated and well-read Twilight Sparkle, and the great and powerful Trixie!" The roaring applause fell on deaf ears as Trixie approached Flair and his partner, who had just crested the top of the stairs. She seemed resolute and did not look directly down, despite, or because of, the look he was giving her. This time at least, it was definitely a crowing smirk, though Twilight didn't really fault him. He was probably just really proud of himself, and rightfully so. Positioning herself between the two of them, Twilight pressed up against Trixie's side. Have to keep Trixie from going for him as should he say something, and have to keep herself from accidentally complimenting his performance. As yesterday, she was determined to show Trixie whose side she was on, if it really had come to that. The two pairs passed another in silence, whereas Twilight was unspeakably grateful. As she and Trixie stepped down to the stairs and started the descent, she felt the rain falling on her mane and coat. It was a gentle sort of rain, not stormy or uncomfortable by normal standards. Maybe a little chilly, but it wouldn't be a problem. Reason is, he was much more concerned about the bitter glare on her partner's face. "Don't let it get to you," Twilight whispered, loud enough for only Trixie to hear. "I'll know we'll do even better than them." "I said I'm fine," Trixie repeated. "There's no doubt in my mind we'll beat Blair. Our magic will put his to shame." Twilight frowned. It sounded like Trixie was trying to convince herself, more than anybody else. "Right," said Twilight. "You know, it's okay to be a little nervous. This is a really important event." "Trixie doesn't get nervous," said the Soulmare darkly. Twilight let out a sigh. There she goes again. "Fine. Then put a smile on, for me at least," said Twilight. "I can't focus if you're all shower face." There was a peculiar sort of pause as Trixie's face went blank, and the determined trot went slowed to a walk. Twilight slowed down too, keeping a close eye on her partner. Amidst the train, it was almost impossible to make out the blush in Trixie's cheeks. Almost. Realizing that she must have been thinking about, Twilight snapped her eyes front as heat rose to her own cheeks. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up now." "It's fine," said Trixie quietly. Another moment passed in silence as they neared the bottom of the stairs. Twilight silently scolded herself for making Trixie think about the mirror again, when they're both supposed to be focusing on the task before them. When she turned to say as much, she found the Soulmare smiling at her, just smiling, and the words died on her tongue. She felt warm. They spoke no more as they stepped onto the rain-slick arena floor. Twilight felt the eyes of everybody in the stands upon them. But somehow, her nerves didn't seem to faint and to get the best of her today. That smile didn't necessarily mean anything, but even still, they got into position, a good dozen strides apart and facing each other in the center of the arena, and the place felt silent now, but for the rain patter and the quiet mutterings of the crowd. Trixie's smile had vanished now, replaced by a cold readiness. Twilight took a deep breath through her nose and released it, cleared her mind, mimicking her partner's expression. For here, the act was planned. They had nowhere to rehearse as the more dramatic spells, but the way Trixie had explained what she wanted to do was so perfectly clear, there was no doubt in Twilight's mind she understood. "I'm ready, Trixie," she willed. "Just give me a signal." No time was wasted. Trixie lowered her head, red wire tumbling from her mane as she did, and lit up her horn. Twilight let out another breath and copied her, focusing on a particular image in her mind. She let the spell charge, waiting for a 5 count as planned, before raising her horn towards the sky. A blue, magical firework shot from her horn. This is a purple one launched from Trixie's, each of them leaving a sparkling trails in their wake as they soared through the air. Their paths crossed just above the height of the stands. A second more, they detonated. The ensuing burst of color from Twilight's firework took the shape of the image he had been focusing on, painting a picture of Trixie's cutie mark in the sky, a luminescent one over an elegant flick of magic dust. Beside it, Trixie's firework burst into the image of Twilight's own cutie mark. Picture perfect. A little fiery sparkle added for effect. The crowd made quiet sounds of awe as they stared upwards, watching the spectacle before them. Twilight dragged her eyes away from to begin the next spellcast while they were distracted. Across from her, Trixie died by way of a signal. The Garrity lit up their horns and magically reached out across the arena floor. A spell Twilight had seen Trixie use many times before, but this time with something of a twist to make it more versatile. Twilight felt the coolness around her hose as white mist began to rise from the ground. As expected, the moisture on the stone floor and in the air above it was easy to manipulate. It took surprisingly very little energy to form a fog when it rose up high enough to cover their knees, ready for the next stage. But that was the easy part. The last sparkles from the fireworks in the sky were fading now, and gazers were turning back to the center ring, expectant of the next trick. Twilight waited until she was sure that they had everybody's attention, then let go of the spell and raised her horn towards the sky. An exaggerated bright light began to emanate from it, and as Trixie continued to sustain the mist, Twilight began to channel a wind spell. A breeze picked up, gently at first, but only enough to brush her mane ever so slightly with its current. She poured a bit of magic into it, smiled beside herself as the mist began to lift up from the ground. She had to close her eyes and focus now. Controlling the occurrence to such pinpoint effect was no everyday task. The wind began to flow in a spiral around the arena, forming a vortex as more and more air she put into the spell. She felt her mane flowing out to one side, heard the roar of the whirling past her ears. She just needed to hold it there for a few seconds. She flinched as she felt what could only be described as a magical prod, as if something was trying to get her attention. She chanced an eye open to investigate, then opened the other as she beheld a massive, swirling twister around her. Already rose higher than the stands themselves. Even not for its color, it might have been confused for a real tornado. Catching Trixie's eye, Twilight hurriedly stayed her spell, realizing she overdone it a little. For her partner's magic still sustained a miss. The vortex didn't dissipate, though it was spun slower now that the wind guiding it had stopped. Twilight forced herself to keep her focus, as she didn't want to miss her opportunity. She was immediately a little downtrodden for the quick success of the spells, but she had a moment to rest after the sixth one. She flicked her head to one side, calling forth a wisp of illusionary flame at the top of her horn. She glanced around at the audience, once more making sure she had their attention, before touching the flame to the still swirling mist at her hooves. The very second that the two spells made contact, there was an incredible rush of magic. All at once, Twilight jumped back and the crowd gasped. The entire vortex became a flaming inferno as the fire spread up from the base to the very top, bathing the stadium in an orange light. When they recovered from their shock, the audience broke into applause. Even to Twilight, it was very impressive. A hurricane of flame roaring, dancing in the center of the arena. She suddenly felt doubly glad that she managed to talk Trixie out of using real fire for this trick. The heat alone would have been enough to singe the hair of every pony in the stands. Twilight's part was over now, though. The climax of this trick belonged to Trixie. Walking backwards, Twilight got herself into a position where she could see the show mare around the torrent of flame that was beginning to burn away. She meant to give Trixie a signal, but there seemed to be no need. She was already had her head low, charging a spell. Make it good, Trixie. A few seconds later, the show mare flicked her head towards with a grunt. The ghostly figure launched itself from her horn. The fister twisted in midair, let out a caw, throwing forth its limbs to reveal itself as a bluish, spectral eagle. It threw itself straight up with lightning speed. The crowd followed with their eyes until it was higher than the inferno itself. It hung there, proudly holding its beak to the sky to revel in attention. Very much how Twilight would expect Trixie to act if she were an eagle. Down fell into a dive. Twilight braced herself as the bird plummeted into the center of the vortex, fanning the flame into more gas from the audience. For the teensiest moment, it was only silence, until, with a satisfying crack, the vortex exploded upwards, sending wisps of flame soaring across the stadium. Twilight's jaw edged open as she watched the spectacle unfold before her. Instead of vanishing into the air with the rest of the vortex, the little flaming wisps, of which there must have been 100, began to dance through the air. There was a gentle flash as one of them collided with another, and in their place was left a tiny fiery bird, which chirped loudly as it fluttered along the wisp. Another flash, another bird, another chirp, then another, and another. The wisp began joining faster and faster, and before long, a veritable bird sound resounded through the stadium. The rain didn't hinder the little critters as they danced and sang together in the air. A sudden, thunderous applause kicked up across the stands. Apparently, the trick looked just as amazing from out there as it did Twilight's point of view. Trixie had really done herself. Twilight snatched her gaze away from the singing firebirds, favored taking her partner. Trixie was still looking up at the sky, regarding her spell work with a proud smile on her face. But as she noticed Twilight looking, she seemed all too happy to meet her eyes, and the smile melted into the same gentle one she had given before the act. Twilight couldn't help but smile back, her eyes a little happy with pride for herself and Trixie both, producing such beautiful magic. If you know what I mean. Oh! From there, the act took on a much less dramatic, though entirely more energetic form. Keeping with the theme of fire and light, the two unicorns filled the dark, rainy sky with brilliant fireworks and more illusionary creatures. The crowd cheered and applauded at the right moments. And each time they did, it seemed to spark an even further increased confidence in Twilight Sparkle, though she couldn't believe it was possible. There, weaving her spells with Trixie in a graceful dance of magic, she couldn't ever remember feeling ever more confident in all her life. Okay, guys, this bit is awesome and all. Don't get me wrong, it is freaking cool. I'm just a little sad that it seems that I'm only going to deal with one fanfic in my life where we allow Trixie to be a stage magician, and I mean on the levels of guys like Penn and Teller and David Copperfield. Those are the people I love the most when I think about Trixie and magic. But it seems like a lot of people just I don't know. Just want to seem to focus on just, oh, magic is just card tricks and, sawing a leg in half. Not things like what Houdini did or what the above mentioned have done. Go watch an episode of Full Us and tell me that you wouldn't love to see Trixie pull some of those tricks out of her hat. At long last, it came time to draw the act to a close. The shining orb was their last spell descended from a spot above the stands. Its purple and blue rays of light slowly faded away. There were now a wave of appreciative clapping and stomping of hooves. Twilight met Trixie's eye. The show mare nodded took the first step forwards. Grand finale, Twilight thought to herself, trying to contain her excitement as she followed suit. The two mares began to close the distance between one another, keeping their eyes locked and their posture steady. Every hoofstep seemed to echo across the stadium. The sound of the rain's ambient patter lessened even more. Finally, they stood before one another, a whole breath apart. Twilight tried and failed to hide an amused smirk as she looked over at Trixie's features. Her coat was matted with rain wire. Strands of remains stuck to her face. Trixie was smirking too, and Twilight knew she didn't look any tired herself. Wonder why the weather committee for Mainhead decided to make today rain. I'm gonna have to talk to those Pegasi. Trixie closed her eyes, and her horn enkindled a purplish light. Twilight closed her eyes, drew on the same spell. Together they leaned forward to touch their horns together, sending powerful electrical prickles a funny word, through the air around them. The little hum of shared magic sent a warm feeling to Twilight's whole body. As she and Trixie began to channel together, the spell was charged, and no signal was needed. They once the spell was won, sending a brilliant beam of purplish blue light up into the sky. In a split second, it pierced the cloud cover, and from there, it only intensified. Twilight could no longer feel the rain at her back, nor hear the gasps and cries of the crowd. The only thing she felt was warmth. After seconds or minutes of the spell's blinding light, she finally pulled back and opened her eyes, just as Trixie did the same. A yellow glow draped over her azure mare as she smiled back at her, highlighting the wetness of her coat and faint glisten in her eyes. They looked up together, squinting in the sunlight as they beheld the results of that spell. The dark clouds that had been hanging over the stadium were gone. The entire ring, the rain had stopped, and now the sun was shining through to make the moisture of the arena glint like gold dust. And to top it all off, glorious magical rainbow had taken the cloud's place, giving the sky a multicolored finish. The stadium was silent, too silent. Twilight suddenly found herself glancing at those ponies in the stands, who were suddenly all turning their eyes to her and Trixie. She licked her lips nervously. I think we might have overdone it, she whispered out the corner of her mouth. Just bow, Trixie hissed. Trust me. With a hefty gulp, Twilight nodded and turned, along with Trixie, to face Princess Celestia's box atop the stands. She hesitated a moment more, before lowering herself into a generous bow. She kept her eyes shut as the silence dragged on, hoping he had upset anybody by breaking the weather. Even the normally vocal announcer didn't seem to have anything to say. Then a single echoey clap broke the veil. The second who belonged to was a mystery. It was soon joined by another, then another, and Fix's clap spread to the stands like wildfire. Twilight chanced to look up in her box. High above, the princess was clapping too. Though Twilight couldn't make out the look on her face from this far away, she knew Celestia smiling down at her. Told you, Trixie muttered happily, drawing herself upright to revel in the applause. Twilight smiled beside herself once again. She too stood up and looked over the crowd, many of whom were their hosts cheering loudly. Whether they got a bigger applause than Flare and Rose was difficult to tell, but she had a good feeling. When the performance now ended, they didn't wait for the announcer to say anything. They headed straight for the stairs leading back up to the box. As they began their ascent, Twilight conjured up a heat spell to dry herself off, and Trixie did the same. You were incredible, Trixie, said Twilight, smiling across at her. But I'm sure you knew that already. Of course I did, said Trixie proudly. I'll admit, it would have been difficult for Trixie to get that kind of response alone, though. You deserve some of the credit. Twilight let out a giggle. How generous of you. Trixie simply flicked back her mane and smiled at the sky with closed eyes. Did you really come up with all that at the bazaar? Twilight said, narrowing a mock suspicious brow. No, Trixie admitted brightly. Just the opener and the finale. The rest is full of veneer. Twilight giggled quietly again. You're really in your element. It's nice to watch. You mean amazing to watch, said Trixie. But I'll forgive you this time. By the time they reached the top of the stairs, they completely dragged themselves off. Their fellow competitors offered no comment as the pair squeezed past to their seats, except for Flair, who smirked and bowed his head. Twilight simply smiled and flushed, whilst Trixie paid him no mind at all. Well, that was something all right, came the announcer's voice as the mayor took their seats. Thank you, Twilight and Trixie, for that amazing show! A nod to our lovely princess herself. I'm certain the weather team won't mind too much that we let a little bit of sunshine in. A sort of chuckling rolled through the audience that got the joke. The Twilight man snapped by a sheepish grin. She really hopes he hadn't made too much work for Annie Pony. That marks the end of our third and final event of this year, Phillies and Gentlecoats. And what a way to finish things off! I'm sure you'll join me in thanking our competitors for one more round of applause! Join them they did. The 10 competitors all got to the host, accepted the gracious applause, waving, bowing, or blowing kisses to the crowd, as was expected of them. Twilight herself only waved, thoughtfully taking in the audience for one last time. That's it then, Twilight mused. No more events, no more performances. It's all up to the judges now. Of course, it wasn't technically the last time the audience would be cheering for them. There was still the closing ceremony to come after all, where the winners would be announced. But still, things felt as if they were drawing to a close. Thank you all! Thank you all! Said the announcer, hustling every pony. Now, if you all please take your seats. We have something of a special announcement for everyone! Twilight made an inquisitive sort of noise and glanced at Trixie as they sat down again. Trixie just shrugged. Normally, the closing ceremony would take place tomorrow, at noon the day of the following event, the announcer explained. But this year, it'll be postponed to the next day in order to give every pony a chance to prepare for tomorrow's celebration! Twilight raised an eyebrow. She didn't remember hearing this about a celebration. As the history buffs among you already know, this year marks the 100th annual display here in Manhattan. And in honor of 100 years of fantastic magical talent, our benefactors have very generously funded and organized a social event for tomorrow morning. The details will be given to you on your way out. But, to put it simply, all of you, competitors included, are hereby invited to join us for 7 p.m. tomorrow in the main event ballroom for a dance! This time, it was cheering excited murmurs that spread through the crowd. Some of the other competitors made noises of appreciative surprise. Twilight, Trixie just looked at each other with wide eyes. Dance! They chorused. Oh yes, a dance.